when
This
you might want to
conference will
recommend
now
her.
be recorded.
We'll look at running reports and kind of what kind of reports are there, and then where the curriculum is, where to find it and how to use it, if you want to do instructor-led classes, and then all the resources you have available to you in the Northstar admin portal. So I just wanted to refresh you. It's been a while since I talked to you kind of about the overview of Northstar. And so Northstar has kind of the main features, which are the assessments, and there's currently 14 of those assessments. And then there's the instructor-led curricula. So if you plan on giving classes either now or sometime in the future in your library, either in person or remotely, we now have 13 of the 14 assessments, 13 of the 14 topics completed, which maybe last time I talked to you, we only had 12. So we just completed information literacy, and that's available to you. And then we also have something that your patron learners can do something a little bit more independently, which is a self-directed online learning. And so 6 of those topics have been completed, and then the reports we'll look at today. One thing that I want to stress is that my understanding is that libraries have access to a lot of tools that they provide to their patrons, and most of those things are, you provide them and you don't have to manage them too much, so patrons can just use them. Just remember that with digital literacy, the people that have no digital literacy or low digital literacy can't access websites, and they can't do some of the stuff on their own. So they are a population that definitely, in order for us to kind of build an equitable world, they are the ones that need more help, partially. So just remember, keep that in mind as you're thinking about implementing Northstar. So now all of you should have received an email from Northstar inviting you to Northstar, and you create a password so that you can get into the admin portal. If you have not, then whoever is the kind of administrator at your library is the person who can add staff to the admin portal. So if you haven't, please contact the administrator. If you don't know who the administrator is, Christine can probably help you. So when they invite you, they choose if you're going to be considered staff or a proctor. And I think most of you are staff. If you were invited as a proctor, you would have gone through a little 15-20-minute video training and answered some questions. But so you should all have access to the admin portal. And what I would do if I were you is bookmark that that page, the URL that it gives you, because that's your, the easiest way to get in. However, if you are at a device where you don't have it bookmarked or you forgot to bookmark it, you can always access your admin portal through the Northstar homepage. So let me just show you what that looks like. So if you go to, this is going to go to our Northstar homepage or not, but I'll show you that anyway. So that is digitalliteracyassessment.org. And if you go there, you will see in the upper, so you can always come to our homepage and get into your unique admin portal. So you just press login, put in your email address, the password you had created. If you forgot your password, you can always reset it right here and then log in. And you are going to go to your admin portal. Now, I have multiple admin portals that I'm a part of. You probably will only have one. And so you click on it, and it's going to bring you here. So this is kind of the front page of your admin portal. And you can see on top here in this blue navigation bar, here there are several tabs that we're going to be talking about today and what kind of information you can find there. So the first one is, you can see the Northstar logo, and next to it says demo. That's my org name. So next, instead of demo, yours would have your library name. Then we have the Learners tab, the Assessments tab, the Report tab. Location information is only used by administrators. So if you are not an administrator, if you try and click there, it will just say you don't have access, and that's how it's supposed to be. Resources. This My Locations, again, you should only have one, and then you'll see your name with this drop-down arrow. So those are our kind of navigation tools here in Northstar that we're going to be working with today. And so for some reason that kind of closed me out, but let me get back to my PowerPoint. Sorry about that. So the first thing we want to talk about is how to add learners to your admin portal. And so why would you add learners? Does anyone remember in the chat, what does adding learners to the Northstar Learner Management System give them access to? What's the benefit to the learner? Anyone remember? You can chat it in. Make sure I can see the chat. So if I'm a learner and I come to your library, there are some things I can do, like take assessments without having access to the learner management system. And there are some things I cannot do. Does anyone remember? No takers? I don't think I can see it. Let me move it. Oh, wait. My chat is not showing it. So yeah, someone said it will save their assessment scores and give them access to practice lessons for questions that were incorrect. Yes, and learners can gain access to the self-directed learning. Very true. Thank you both for answering that. So unless the learner is signed up in the learner management system, they cannot access the practice lessons. So that's the only way they gain access to them, which is why you want to provide that. Now you have the option at the library as an organization to give people the ability to create their own, to enter their own information into the learner management system to create their own access. And that is great. But again, remember that only people who have some digital skills are able to do that. So for those who are very beginning digital skills or a little bit lower level digital skills, if they don't know how to use the internet, for example, they won't be able to do that themselves. So there will be people that most likely you encounter who need help doing this. So, we want to add, be able to create new learners in here, add learners to the learner management system. And one thing that we want to think about first at your libraries are about tags. So the benefit of tags are that if you don't put tags on learners, whenever you run a report, you're going to see everybody who comes into the library and uses Northstar. And that presumably will be a lot of people. So if you want to, let's say, just look at the learners in a class you're providing, or learners from a certain zip code, or people by different age category or whatever it might be. In order to kind of run those sub-reports, you would need to use tags. So the way to create a tag is very easy. And we're going to go into our admin portal. Here. So, oops, I'm going to go to this other location. So here we are in our admin portal. You can see I'm on the demo tab. Which of these tabs do you think I might go to add a new learner and create learner tags? Learners, that's right. And there was a question, very good. So we try to make it intuitive. Someone asked, are tags visible to learners or staff only? Tags are not visible to learners, only to staff. That's a great question. A good clarification. So we're going to go to our Learners tab, And you can see that it starts out with me on View Learners. And so I'm going to go to Manage Tags, because where it says New, that's how I'm going to add a new tag. Now, when you add a tag for your library, everyone in every staff person in the library who can get into Northstar can see that tag, but again, your learners won't be seeing the tags. So let's say, does anyone have a tag they'd like me to use? Maybe a class or a person or a program that you have. I can make one up if you don't have anything, but okay, let's say adult. So then I type in what I want the tag to say, I click on create tag, and then you can see it's alphabetical, and here it is. If I decided I wanted to change that, if I wanted to say, adult something, I can just press on the pencil. This information in the middle, this is really kind of advanced and probably something that you won't be doing, so we're not going to talk about it today. And then you can see on the far right that there is a, if I decide I want to get rid of this tag, there's a trash can, so I can delete it. So now I've created my tags. I'm going to create the learners accounts. And you can create the learner account first and then the tag afterward. It's just a little quicker. Sometimes individual by individual if you create the tag first for the whole groups that you're thinking of tagging. So we go to View Learner here, back where we started. And can you guess where I might go to create a new learner account? Again, it's not a trick question. Yes, invite new learner. So I go over here to invite new learner, and all the information I need is their first name, their last name, an email address, which if they don't have one, of course, you'd have to create one for them, and then whatever tag I'm going to use. So let's say our learner's name is, I'm just making something up. And now you can see that in the tags field, there are no tags, but you can only see them if you click on it. And so once you click in the field, they all show up. We can add as many tags as we want. So again, there's one. If I click on it again, I can add, another one. So you can add as many tags as makes sense for you. And then we're going to click on Invite Learner. And I see there are a few questions. So someone asked, is email address required? Many patrons don't have an email account or cannot access their account. Yes, that is so true. So true, because some of these people, that are lower digital literacy don't know how to use email. So the answer is two parts. One, yes, an email address is needed.
In the upstairs hallway. Fortunately, I locked all
the
doors.
So that's something that you will have to create. Now, it doesn't have to be an email. I just want to clarify. You can create the email. It doesn't have to be something they are ever going to look at. So the emails, if you have someone who doesn't yet know how to access email, that's okay. This is just their kind of the Northstar way of tying their name to a unique person, really. You can use a generic email, but it has to be different from someone else's email. So you could put, let's say your generic email was southdalelibrary@gmail.com. You might just have to put Southdale Library 1 or something like that. Or somehow there is a way that the Gmail will recognize it coming to your library, but it won't, it will just go to your actual library email if that's what you're looking for. But again, these emails don't have to go anywhere. They don't have to, as long as Northstar sees an @gmail.com, like I totally made up this email and it will still create this learner. And I'll show you how to kind of get around it for those who can't use email yet. Marlene will talk a little bit more about the tags in a second. The point of the email is that's how someone logs into the system. So if they don't have an email, they can't log into the system. So that's the kind of unique identifier in the Northstar system, okay? And the email can be changed, you can edit it. So let's, these are really great questions. So yeah, a username with @gmail.com will work. The learners will need to remember, very good point, that the learners need to remember the emails that you assign, or you do, or both of you. But yes, that is something that you might have to write down for them, you know, to give them so they have that email, especially if, again, if they're not used to using email addresses, that's something that may not be easy for them to remember. Katie, there's no easy way this can be changed. No, it would require a lot of coding, and you know, we're nationwide, so it would mess up a lot of people's accounts. All right, so you can make a generic email for each library. You can make a generic email for each library, but again, it just has to be, somehow you have to make it unique to that person as well. So I will send Christine the instructions on doing that. Pretty easy. Just writing myself a note. So Northstar, that email, there, if the person wants to collect badges, it would go, you know, to them there. And you can't use the same email for two people, right? So you have to make sure that it's unique. All right, so let me, before I answer the rest of your questions, let me show you, and I think this will answer a lot of what you're wondering. All right, so here I have this information filled out, and I'm going to invite the learner. And then you can see at the top of my screen here, where it says Nancy Adams, this little yellow clock shows that the invitation to that email has been sent, but the person has not yet created a password. So like we're talking about, it may be that this person doesn't have the skills to create a password, or to access email, or to read the email. So in that case, let me first show you what the email looks like so you have an idea. So here's what the email will look like. And what the person getting the email would do is click on this, you know, big blue bar, click there, make a password, and that would be their password. But again, like we talked about, it may be that they don't know how to do that, they can't access email, maybe they don't have the reading level to read this. So you can create a password for them. So the way to do that is that you'll see to the right of the learner's name, where that was pending, there'll be a lightning bolt. And that's where you can click there and then make a password. So again, this password you'll have to give to the learner. And I would definitely use a consistent system, because as we know, people forget passwords all the time. You can reset it in the Northstar system, but it just makes it easier if if someone's saying, oh, I forgot my password, you can always say, well, at the library, if we created it, this is the password we would use. And then you click on update. So here you can see, here's someone who's pending. And then we would go to that lightning bolt. I've got all these chats in my way. The lightning bolt over here, the third rectangle square, and click on that. And that's going to let you create the password. So then here's where I would create that password. Someone asked if you could change an email address. Here's where you can kind of change that email address for somebody, and then you'd press update. Here's where you set the new password, press update. If you'd spelled someone's name wrong, you can do all those things here. All right. So then, just let me see if you have any other questions. All right. You are not notified if the email already exists. So I understand that at libraries, you are creating emails for people all the time. So you might just want to use that procedure, you know, in this case of how you create emails for people, for your patrons. But definitely be, make sure that everyone in the library knows what you're going to be doing so that there is some communication around that and consistency around that. Let's see. Someone said if you've missed a training before this, we did have a training about all the features in Northstar, an overview training. So if you're wondering like what is in Northstar, that was a different training. All right. Yes, thank you for putting the aliases in the chat. So it sounds like many of you don't know what Northstar is. So perhaps we should back up, and there is a recording of that training, of the overview training. But for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, Northstar is let me just go to a different slide. So we can do the overview instead of this, if that seems beneficial. I don't know if most of you haven't had the training, or there's just a few. But let's look at something here, just to refresh your memories if you've already seen it, and for those of you who haven't, kind of get you caught up to speed. You get to see all my PowerPoints. All right. So just to kind of refresh your memory. So Northstar has been around for about 10 years. I saw something from Don in there. Don put the overview recording. Yeah, I don't think it wasn't intended by admins only, as far as I understand. Maybe Christine and Don, you can jump in here. Okay, well, I can do the first training if you want that, but I need to know what you want.
I would really rather that we not repeat the overview training. We do have a recording of the general Northstar overview, and we do have a recording of the site administrator training. So we're recording this one, and if you miss the other trainings, it might be helpful for you to watch those trainings and then watch the recording of this one, as we're really getting into kind of the staff functions that are a little more advanced than the overview training and introduction, and not quite as advanced as the admin training that we already had.
Right. All right, so just a quick recap, and then we'll kind of go back to where we were. So Northstar has been around for about 10 years. The goal of Northstar is to help those people who are very low digital literacy. And we have done that by looking at kind of what topics are relevant to this group and creating standards around each of those topics. So basically saying these are the skills that someone needs to learn. And then from those standards, creating an assessment that shows, has someone learn these skills. The assessment is typically given, and then it will let people know what they still have to work on. And once they identify that, you at the library can provide either the self-directed online learning, which is more independent for learners, or you can provide digital literacy classes, or both. And then after whatever the educational piece is, then there'll be people take another assessment to see if they've passed. And if they pass, and if it's something that's proctored, so someone is watching them take the assessment, they can earn a certificate saying that they've passed. And just to kind of quickly remind you, these are the current assessments that we have. So again, it's starting out with people who may not know how to turn on a computer or use a mouse or search on the internet. And then you can see it gets into some more advanced skills. So that's kind of a very brief overview of Northstar. And like Don said, I would highly encourage you, if you haven't seen the overview, to watch it, because it will make this make a lot more sense to you. So let's go back to our other slideshow. Any quick questions about kind of what Northstar is? All right. Let me just make sure. Okay, thank you. All right, so we were talking about creating a learner account, how to do it manually. If you have a bunch of people, let's say you are offering a class and you want to add a lot of people to the learner management system at once, then you can do that. So you can create a spreadsheet and have, again, their first name, their last name, and their email, and then upload that into Northstar, and all those people will be added at one time. So it will save you some time. So that you can find that again under the Learners tab. And it's next to Invite New Learner. It's this Import tab and turns gray when you hover over it. The one thing that you can't do that on that spreadsheet is add tags there. So just to recap, the purpose of tags is to create subgroups for you to look at. So right now, if you look at all the people I have as learners, I've got 3 pages of learners. Now might be, maybe I'm a teacher and instructor and I only want to look at those that are in my class. Or maybe I'm interested in the someone has talked about having a Word class. Or maybe I want to look at all those Word classes that we're offering and just look at how students are doing in that. Or maybe I'm looking at patrons who are in different, like I said, in different zip codes. You may decide that at your library you don't need tags. It's just a feature that allows you to create sub-reports that might be have more pertinent information to you, rather than looking through everything. And as we look at the reports, I think that will make more sense. So, but let's say I have decided to add a new tag about, I'm offering a new class, and many of the library patrons that are already in the system are going to join that class. So I can still add tags to people after the fact. So let's say, I'm just going to go here because I know I'm here. So let's say I want to add a tag, the same tag to, a bunch of people here. And you can see I clicked on the little square next to their name. And then over here on the right, you can see I've identified 6 people and I'm going to assign tags. So I click on that and then all my tags come up again. And let's say I want to add the adult tag. I want to add the word tag that we made. Whoops. I can find it. There it is. And maybe a teacher tag and a day. So I want to look at all these people, or I want to apply these tags to all these people. And then you can see that those people, those tags have been added. Now, you can also just add it to one. So if I add a learner, I can always click either on that box, but I can also click on their name and I can assign the tag here. So there's multiple ways of assigning tags. So any question about why you would add a learner or why you would, how you would do it? It's fairly straightforward. Now, the other nice thing about you being added to the learner management system, or into the admin portal, I should say, all of you, is that you get to see it as a staff member, but also as a learner. And we did that because we felt it was really important for you to see what the learners are seeing. Once the learners have been added to the learner management system, they have access to their own unique dashboard that keeps track of the assessments they've taken, the scores they've received, how much of the self-directed online learning they've done, which are often called practice lessons. So you want to be able to see that so that when you're talking to the, your patrons, you can explain what they're going to be seeing and explain kind of what it is, as well as you can use it yourself too. So for those of you who took an assessment, you saw the results page of what what standards you passed, what standards maybe you didn't. And you can go then to those standards you didn't pass and you can review them in the practice piece. And Anne, I totally identify with you in having, this is my second webinar I'm giving today. So I totally know what you mean. There's a lot of information out there. So the way that you can switch between seeing the Northstar admin portal and your learner dashboard is really easy. So if you remember that blue navigation bar in the admin portal had your name on it will have your name on it on the far right hand corner. So here's mine. So right now I'm viewing this from the point of view of Teresa, the staff, and I'm seeing the admin portal, but I want to see it as Teresa the learner. So I go over here to my name, I click on this drop down arrow, and then I see the Northstar online learning. And those are the practice sessions, the dashboard. So I click there. And I'm just gonna get there. And now I'm seeing this as Teresa the learner. So now I can see what all the people that you've been adding to the learner management see for themselves. And I can see, here are all the assessments, topics, the topics. This is showing me, what I've completed for each assessment, what I've done. The inner ring is how much of the practice I've done. And then if I click on the details button, I can start the practice or go to a specific place in the practice. So I encourage all of you to play around in there. One, just for your own professional development. And two, so you get a little bit used to it, so you can then, if people have questions, come up to you with questions, you are able to answer it for them. Even if you're not, let's say, specifically teaching Northstar, or maybe you are at kind of helping patrons with a variety of things. This way, if people come to you with questions, you can answer them for them, have an idea of what they're talking about. So here again are the 14 assessments that we currently have. And again, just pointing out that the people who may be lower digital literacy, you'd want to start them out with the basic computer assessment. Make sure they can, if someone can pass these 3 assessments, then they can do most of Northstar on their own. But if they can't, this is something where maybe you are providing classes, maybe you have dedicated computer lab people, maybe you are partnering with an adult education program outside of the library or within the library. So that group of people will just need a little bit more direction. So how and why do you use the assessments? So many organizations and many libraries will provide the assessments to their patrons and let the patrons take them themselves. And it will be tied to your library. You'll have a unique URL that will tie people to your library. And then they'll get their results and they'll know kind of what to work on. And I would recommend that they do that as kind of a pre-test. So they see what they know, and they see what the skills are they need to work on, just like many of you may have taken it. Then after they've done some of that practice or maybe had a class or worked with a tutor, then they would take the test, the same test again as a post test. And oftentimes in a library, this will be proctored. So there might be specific people who are proctors. They might have proctoring, hours in your computer lab, or you sign up to work with someone who proctors. And the reason you would proctor a test is that if someone passed it, then they could get a certificate that would, show their achievement. And this is often used for people on people's resumes or talking about in an interview, but also it just really helps build their self-confidence. People who typically have lower digital literacy often feel afraid of computers, afraid of breaking them, afraid of wiping out all the information. And so this is kind of a neutral, an objective way of saying that they actually do have these skills and they know what they're doing. And if you haven't heard me say this before, I've worked with learners who have started crying when they get their certificates. I've worked with people who wanted to frame them and put them up on their walls in their house. I've had people who put them up on their fridge. Like, it really means a lot to people to know that they have learned these skills. The other use of an assessment is to prepare all of you. So if any of you are going to be teaching this information, is a great way to review what, many of us know digital literacy, but we just have gaps because we taught ourselves. It was maybe something we didn't know how to do, but or we didn't have to do, so we never learned it. And so we might have some gaps ourselves. So this can prepare you if you're going to teach a class. And even beyond that, I would say, again, for professional development reasons, I have not yet met anyone who can pass all 14 assessments with 100%. So there's always the opportunity for us to learn more around digital literacy. It's lifelong learning. And I can say that myself, I've learned things going through the Northstar assessments and the practice that have made my job much more efficient. So even though I'd consider myself pretty digitally literate. So those are some of the uses of the assessments. And the way that people can take the assessments, if they should ask you, is, and Christine is sharing her experience with the Northstar assessments. Yeah, some of them are not that easy as you might think. So you each have, or each library has a unique URL associated with it that you will want to provide to your patrons. And many libraries will put this on, on your library website so that patrons who want to take the assessment can come click there and then take the assessment. Again, some people who need digital literacy skills won't be able to do that. They won't have the skills to do that. So they might be walking into your library and maybe they are asking for help with something on the computer, or asking someone to print out something for them or something like that. And there's an opportunity for you to say, would you like to learn more, digital skills? Again, it's going to take your time and energy. So where do you find that site-specific URL? So if you go to your admin portal, I want to show you something else first, I think. So if you're in your admin portal, when you come to, again, the front page is under the Northstar logo and your organization's name, you're going to see under your info here, the location pin, the second bullet point is that bookmark, is the site-specific URL. So this is something that you can, again, put on your library webpage. And also that if you do have a computer lab or computers in the library, I would bookmark this page so that it's really easy for your patrons to get to. And once they click on that, it will take them to the assessments, but it will have your library name here. So mine says demo, but this would have your library name and address. And then if you go down, here are all the assessments. So that will ensure that when someone takes an assessment, the record of it will go to your library, and all the reports will go to your library. And so Jonathan asks a good question. Are these major certificates? No, these are actual Northstar certificates. So they're personal certificates for Northstar that I'll show you what they look like. They are recognized a lot of places, and a lot of organizations, like higher level computer training organizations, might require that someone has passed certain Northstar assessments. Sometimes various universities or community colleges, they use Northstar as a way to see who's ready to take classes. I mean, of course, they won't turn someone away, but it's a way for them to see who needs some extra skill building on who's ready. So they are recognized, but not someone else's certificates, just Northstar's. Good question. So, so there's that URL. I showed you where to find that URL. You can also find it under on your admin portal. You can also find it under assessments. So if that makes more sense to you, you can find it under assessments, and here's that assessment launch page. And here it is again. A learner can also, if they're in their dashboard, take an assessment from their dashboard. So if someone had logged in to do some of the self-directed online learning, the practice lessons, and then they felt they had learned something and they wanted to take the assessment, they could do that right from their dashboard. And so again, that would be tied to your site-specific URL, so that information would all come to your admin portal, and you would have a record of that. And so just to show you where that is in their dashboard, here they are in their dashboard, and you can see it says take assessment. So for whatever topic they want, they can take the assessment. I have mentioned proctoring and not proctoring. The reason that you would think about having someone at your library be, or several people be proctors, is that because when someone passes, if it is proctored, then they are able to get those certificates. So if someone passes and it's not proctored, they'll get their score, but they won't be eligible for the certificates. And the reason for that is that we want to, obviously Northstar wants to maintain assessment viability. So we don't want someone saying they're, Teresa, and it's somebody else taking the test for me. So then getting the credit. Or you don't want someone using notes or something like that. And so there's a question in the chat about, excuse me, can your patrons take proctored tests with your staff being proctors? Yes, exactly, and that's how it would work. So Northstar itself doesn't proctor. It would be your staff who would be the proctors. And again, however that works best in your organization. Some libraries will have specific office hours for proctoring. Some will have people sign up. So they cannot take assessments without someone on staff there being proctor. So somebody at the library would have to proctor it. And you can do proctoring in person at the library, or you can do it remotely if the client has a device and internet. We aren't going to go into how to do proctoring today, because my understanding is that at this point, most of you are not listed as proctors and haven't gone through that training. And we'll have another training more specific to proctors. Yeah, great question. Can a library deputize a volunteer to proctor? Yes, and we would highly recommend that. In fact, at Literacy Minnesota, which is who provides Northstar, we at our schools, we do use volunteers, and they're great proctors and tutors. So they would just, again, your administrator would add them to the staff portal. They would go through that 15-20 minute video training and the little quiz, and they would get their own everyone would get their own proctor pin who goes through that training and passes. So as you're talking to your patrons, though, if you do have proctoring available at your library, you might want to tell them you should know the benefits of proctoring, right? So again, that they'd get these certificates, that they could see they can talk about it if they're looking for jobs, and they can prove to themselves and others that they know the information. So it's kind of just a I'm not gonna go through this with you because you don't need to know it. But this is what the certificate would look like. And yes, so the only way you can get a certificate is to have the assessment proctored. Now, if someone passes and it was not proctored, they can get a digital badge. So if they are someone who's using like a digital backpack, like for micro-credentials, they'd get a digital badge. It would say that it was not proctored, but they could get that. But the only way to get a certificate or a digital badge that says it's proctored is for it to be proctored. So you can see it looks like, it tells you who got it, who where it says by demo, that's your organization. It says what they passed and when, and then who the proctor was. And again, these are very meaningful to people who have passed the certificates. So any kind of question about proctoring or assessments at this point? So in future trainings, there will be, how to do proctoring, and then we'll also have kind of Northstar from the learner perspective, so how to talk to the learner about using Northstar. Yeah, that's a great question about are there any how we did it presentations from other public libraries. So yeah, Don and Christine are kind of working with, actually there's a lot of states that have made Northstar available to all their public libraries, and often through a state librarian's office. But those kind of state representatives get together every month, and I think today is one of the days, to kind of share best practices and how is this working and what have you done. And so Don and Christine are part of that, which I think is really wonderful too. I get to go to those too, so it's really wonderful to see. So very good question. So let's think about let's look at reporting. And within the Northstar admin portal, there are multiple places that you can see reports. And some of the reports are really tailored to looking at an individual patron and how they're doing if you're helping them. So let's say you are a tutor or someone working in a computer lab or a volunteer working with people or a teacher. And then some are more library-wide. So if you want to see kind of more at a global view what your library is doing, there are those reports too. And you can kind of find them in 3 different places. So there's some that are in the Learner tab, there's some that are in the Assessments tab, and there's some in the Reports tab. And we'll kind of look at the different things in Northstar. I do want to just tell you that, please play around in the admin portal, create those fake learners to get the hang of it. You can take assessments yourself. You can look at the self-directed online learning. There's nothing in there that you're going to really break or ruin. So feel free to click away as you're in there, and you can always delete fake learners if you want to, and things like that. So it's meant to be used. So let's look at the reports you have access to. So I am here now in the Learner tab here in my blue navigation bar. And you can see that I see a list of all my, all the learners that have been assigned to this library. So these are the people that we've added as into the learner management system. And you can see that next to them, they have all these symbols next to their names. And the symbols represent, each icon represents an assessment. So if you hover over it, it will tell you, this first one is basic computer skills. If you see an assessment that has, if you see a symbol that has a kind of black and white hexagon around it, that means that this person passed this assessment, but it was not proctored. And if you see that hexagon but in color, that means that this assessment has been passed and it was proctored. So kind of quickly gives you a look at, how many people are taking assessments. I don't have a lot because this is a demo, but and what assessments they're taking. If you want to look at a specific assessment, so let's say you're interested in finding about how many people have done email, or what perhaps, again, if we were looking at those tags, what a particular group of people have done around the email assessment. You can click on the icon and it will show you what everyone has done in this group. So you can see, what the score, if someone took the assessment, if they've done any of the self-directed online learning, that will show up. And so it just gives you a quick snapshot view of kind of what's going on with your patrons or this group of patrons. Now, let's say I didn't want to look through 3 pages of people. I can, again, on every report, I can filter. And there's different filters for each report, but what they all have, again, are these tags. So let's say I wanted to look at people who were in my Word class. So I would come down here, I'd click on the tag, and then I'd apply that filter. And then it's just going to show me people that have been signed up to the Word class and how they're doing on various things. I don't know if anyone has done anything in this group with Word, but you can check, whatever it might be that you're looking at. So if we're looking at internet basics, you can see what people have done. I'm sure why this is not switching here. In this group have done on internet basics or whatever the topic might be, or you can look at all of them. So that's kind of the benefit of a tag, to narrow down that group you're looking at if it's of use to you. The other thing that you can do here is if I want more information on an individual that I'm working with, I can click on their name, and that will bring me to kind of a scorecard for this person. And it will show me, here again are the modules or the assessments. And if I hover over each icon, it will tell me what it is. Then you can see that under best score, it tells you the best score on an assessment. You can see how many times they've tried it. And then if it's nice because it's color coded. So if it's green, they've passed, and if it's yellow, they haven't. Under practice lessons, this lets you know how much of that self-directed online learning they've done, what percentage they've completed. Here under badge, it tells you if they've earned a badge or not, and then if it was proctored or not. And here is where, if they were eligible for a certificate, you could print it out for them. Now in Northstar, whenever you see this I, it means there's more information behind it. So if we click on there, this goes to show me which of those standards this person missed. And on the right, if they've done the practice piece for it or not. And then if I scroll all the way down to the bottom, I can see when they took that assessment, who proctored it, what their score was. And again, if I click on the I can see, and I scroll all the way to the bottom, I can see the actual questions they missed. So again, if I'm working with this person, if I'm tutoring them, helping them out in the computer lab, I'm a volunteer or an instructor, I can say, and they're having trouble. Let's say they're having trouble passing this assessment. I can take a look at these questions and see if there's a pattern. Is there something they're not understanding? And I wouldn't expect you to remember what each question is. So you can actually click on the number and it will bring up the actual assessment question. Now, I would never tell you to teach to the test. I wouldn't have you, go right to this question and tell the patron, obviously, the answer. But it can let you see, are they getting confused by what it's asking? Or do they not understand this topic, and how can I explain that better? things like that. So it can just inform how you might help someone who's struggling with this particular assessment. Amanda had a good question about how soon after major software updates or assessments updated. So they are, as you know, their software is updated all the time. We take a look at the updates and we determine if the update itself affects the actual assessment. So sometimes what's updated isn't what we felt were the core standards, but the ones that do, if the standards are affected, then we will change it. And then every 2 to 3 years, we look at all the standards in Northstar and make sure that they're up to date and that there's nothing we want to change. And if we do change, then we change everything. Everything is related to the standards, so the assessments and the instructional pieces we would change. The actual answers are not listed, so which is why it's helpful for those of you who are working with learners to, again, go through the assessments and then through the either the practice modules, the self-directed online learning, or through just the curriculum to learn that yourself, since you may be helping some people with that. All right, so good question. If there's something you're working with a learner and neither one of you can figure out what the answer is and you're having a hard time, you can write into Northstar. You as a staff person can write into Northstar and ask, what I can't quite figure out how to help this learner, what is the answer to this question, and then they will help you. But we don't publish the answers because obviously that makes the test less viable. Great questions. So that's kind of some of the things you can see under this learner tab. I'm not sure on my screen. But another report, and so you can also download this, so then it would be in a spreadsheet so that you can then sort it various ways if you want to. You can also go, I was on the View Learners tab, but if we go to the View Usage Amounts, this tells me how much time people have been doing that self-directed online learning, so practicing on their own pretty much, either at your library or somewhere else. So if they're entered into the learner management system, as long as they have access to a device and the internet, they can go through the practice lessons from wherever they are. So they could be at your library or they could be at home. Many people use them from over their break at work. This will let you know, kind of interesting for you to see how much time people spend on that at the library and how much time people are spending on it, outside the library. And again, you can filter this by those tags, by date range here, and you can download this as a spreadsheet so you can kind of sort the information as it makes sense to you. So those are the reports that are under the Learner tab and kind of related again to individuals. If we look under the Assessments tab, this is where, if you were proctoring, here's a lot of information about proctoring here that we'll talk about in that training. But over here on the right, these are the reports that revolve around assessments. So if I wanted to see all those assessments at my library that have been proctored and they passed, I could click here. And again, so this is showing me, what the assessment was, who was the proctor, when it was given, what the score was. If I wanted to make this list smaller, I could filter either by the tags. I could look at everybody who took it, whether it was proctored or not. I could look at it by specific topics. So if I only was interested in how many people took email, I could see that, or specific date range. Like let's say you had a promotional kind of media event saying, come take these assessments, and you could see how effective that was. So you can kind of apply whatever filter you want here. So let's go back there. And again, if you click on somebody's name, it will give you more details about that person. So here it kind of says again what standards they passed, which ones they still need to work on, and what questions they got wrong. You can also, delete an assessment if for some reason this person really wasn't a patron, or if you're just practicing. There you can do that too. So the other place you can find, so Learners tab was kind of more about individuals. Assessments tab is more about specific to assessments. And then the reports, these are more your overall library view. So if I go to view summary report, this first report I see is a circle graph. And if I hover over it, it tells me how many assessments at this library were given in basic computer skills. So this is a great way for you to see, one, what your patrons are doing, and also how you're spending, how you're using the Northstar subscription. The other way that's helpful for you to look at is you can see that at this particular location, there's quite a few people who were interested in taking the Internet Basics assessment. This is actually a small location. So if we look at these numbers, they're a little bit bigger. Or, sorry, I went right to the same one. I meant to go to a real one. All right, so here you can see, they had over 2,000 people taking the basic computer skills test. And a lot of people here were interested in taking Internet Basics assessment. Not that many people in PowerPoint. So maybe as a library, you say, wow, we have a lot of people interested in or needing Internet Basics. Maybe we should think about providing a class for that. And the PowerPoint, maybe that's something where, people either work on their own on it, or they work with a one-on-one tutor, or in the computer lab or something. So that can help you inform what your patrons are needing in digital literacy. The bar graph on the bottom, similarly, this shows the percentage of each assessment that has been passed. So you can see that a lot of patrons are 68% are passing the email assessment, but only 25% are passing the Google Docs assessment. So again, you might say, well, email seems fairly easy for this group of people. And so maybe if someone doesn't pass, we send them to the self-directed online learning, because they'll probably be able to, pick it up on their own. Whereas Google Docs, that people seem to be having a lot of trouble with that. Maybe that's a class that we should offer. So again, it can just help you decide as a library where you might want to provide instruction if that's what you're looking to do. If you go into the detailed reports, excuse me, this shows you again by topic, how many have been given, passed, the percentage. If you go into view report, it shows you those things. It also shows you how long it's taking on average for your patrons to take this assessment, which will be helpful if you decide to offer proctoring. So you could say, well, on average it takes, it takes usually 15 to 20 minutes. So maybe if we have staff capacity, we figure proctoring session will take about half an hour. And you can also proctor more people than one at a time. But that just kind of helps you with time management. Then as we scroll down, this is looking at kind of overall at your site, how people are doing on each question. So, and this is where that tagging feature and kind of looking at a specific group of people, let's say in a class, might be helpful. So you can see like this group of people, question 13 is very hard for them. Maybe these are all the patrons at your library. If you scroll down, you see, okay, question 13 is highlighted again by this brown triangle. If I click on it, I see the question, and it's about what mouse pointers do what. And people are getting very confused by that. So maybe you decide to have just a brief 15-minute mini session that you make available to the public on, some of these topics that seem to be challenging for a lot of people, and kind of going over the information. So it's kind of a mini class, let's say. Or maybe you provide just resources at the computers that say, remember these things, this is what each one of these does. Yeah, so someone asked, can you, excuse me, can you filter by a date range? And yes, you definitely can, and that is very useful. So if we go to back up here, we go to filter results. So both of these, or all the reports I just showed you, you click on the filter results, and then it would have the date range here. So you can look at it every, a year or just a month. Some organizations run it every month. So that's a good way to filter. The other thing I want to show you about the tagging and reporting is that, let's go here. So if you want to look at tagging and you want to say, I want to know all the people who are, let's say, in my Friday AM class and also being taught by M. Smith. So if I put 2 tags in there, that means that the person has to have both tags. And if we apply the filter, let's see, we can see that there's 3 people that meet that criteria. If I'm looking more at, I want to know if this person is either in my Friday morning class, or if I click on the or and do another tag, or they are with, let's see, our word class. Then if I apply that filter, I would see people who are either in one or the other of those, and you can see the list is longer. So those are some of the searching tag kind of ability that you have, filtering ability that you have. And each report will have different filtering capabilities. So for example, the assessment results that I showed you had a lot more filters that you can place. So those are the reports in Northstar. And we talked about the filtering. I'm going to show you a little bit of where you can find the lesson plans and the instructor-led curricula, either if you're going to teach Northstar or if you yourself just want to kind of learn some things about digital literacy as well. And we don't have a self-directed online learning module for it. So the curricula, you can see that we have 13 of the 14 unit topics completed, and the team is now working on your digital footprint. I want you to know that Northstar, in what we've done, so in the assessments, in the self-directed online learning, and in the curriculum, all of Northstar is written at kind of a grade 4 reading level. And then that was intentional because we know that many of the adults that we, Literacy Minnesota, works with either don't read English very well or just don't know how to read very well. So you can think of that grade 4 reading level, intermediate English language reading level. Some of these other scores may not be meaningful to you. They're used more in education. But that's not to say that you can't use this with someone whose reading level is lower, but that would require, obviously them working with an instructor who was used to working with adults on English language learning. Where it might be helpful if you either have a department in your library that works with people on that, or maybe outsource it to a community-based organization in your area for people who help with reading and also digital literacy. So in the teaching resources, there's a lot for you there to help you navigate it, but I just want to emphasize that the lesson plans are really easy, and again, it's something that you can have volunteers use to teach. You don't have to have a teaching background. They make it easy for you to know what to say and what to do as an instructor. So please don't feel intimidated by that list, and I'll go through it here with you. So you can find the curriculum course in your admin portal, and it's going to be listed under resources here. So here I am in the resources tab, and then you can see it here in the middle right, Northstar curriculum. If I click on view Northstar curriculum, it's going to give me, here's a teacher guide. So if I am someone who's not familiar with teaching, or if I the Northstar lesson plans are all laid out the same. So if I want to know how to do a specific piece of them, I can look here. If you're going to be teaching remotely, and this is your first time teaching remotely, there are some tips here, very extensive tips. And if you're also even like a checklist for that virtual class, that first virtual class. Then if you come down here, here are all the lesson plans, all the topics, unit topics. So if we go into, let's say, Internet Basics. Each topic has a scope and sequence at the kind of beginning of the list. And this shows you kind of what skills are going to be learned, what the standards are, the vocabulary that will be learned, and then where to find each standard in a lesson. So let's say you decided that you're going to have kind of a career fair or something at the library, and you wanted to make sure most jobs now you fill out online forms to get the apply for the job. So you wanted to make sure that people knew how to do that. So you could have a little mini class again on how to fill out an online form. You see that's in standard 9, and then you'd come over here and say, oh, here's standard 9 in lesson 9. So that's where I would find the material for that class. The Northstar is also aligned with these college and career readiness standards. That's more, again, in the education field, but it's more of an academic view of teaching adults. And so we are aligned with those, as well as this thing called ACES Transition Integration Framework, which is basically soft skills. So this would show you where in the lessons people are learning soft skills that they might use at a job, for example. And then here are the actual lessons themselves. And you can see if you click on one, it's going to give you access to, the first page of the lesson plan, and then kind of walking you through as an instructor what you're going to do, what you're going to say. There's also a unit project that is optional, but if you decide to offer that, it's really taking an in-depth look at a couple paragraphs that people have to, again, more educational related, so they really have to read for comprehension, and then use the digital skills they learn to create a project. And then the curriculum can also be taught remotely as well. So we've made it easy for you to share share remotely the pages that the learners would want to see versus all the lesson plans that you have. So that's all located in your resources tab in your admin portal. So here we are in resources. So the last thing we're going to look at is, I would just want to remind you of which of the self-directed online learning modules we do currently have. So we have these 6: basic computers, internet basics, using email, Microsoft Word, Windows, and career search skills. Those are all completed and available in that learner dashboard. The next one the team is working on is Excel, and that should be done by March 2022. And then they just go in, the Northstar team goes in order of how many people nationwide are taking each assessment, like which is the most popular, and then we create the self-directed online learning module that's most seems to be something that people are interested in. That's how social media came up next. I do want to, I've given you a lot of information today, and you are probably still, as libraries, also figuring out, how you're going to implement Northstar. I do encourage you to really think about the implementation piece, who's going to be doing what, how you're going to talk to patrons about this, how you're going to advertise to patrons who, again, aren't going to see something online. So there's a lot to think about, and there's a lot I've said, but you do have access to the resources tab, and you'll find almost all of your answers are in there. So let's take a look, I'll give you a little tour of the resources page. So again, we're here in our admin portal. And if I go into the Northstar manual, this is very comprehensive. We are, Literacy Minnesota is focused on literacy, so we really like to make sure we are teaching people things. So here you can see there's different parts. So you can see here's part 1 is about just the admin portal in general, how to give the assessments, how to use the self-directed online learning, which the acronym for that we use is NSOL, so you might see that around in the admin portal. How to use that, how to talk to learners about the self-directed online learning, how administrators would use this, the curriculum, managing your own Northstar account, there's a dictionary, and then if you're proctoring, there are these codes of conduct for you and the test taker. So you can see that it's pretty clear on what you're supposed to do, and there'll be screenshots of how to do it or where you're going. In the FAQs, this is also arranged kind of by topic. So there's the general information, questions about assessments, the curriculum, this Northstar online learning, and kind of different tasks that you might be doing. The Northstar online learning, this has some videos that just kind of more describe what it is. And then here's a teacher guide that, again, lets you, gives you some ideas of how to use this if you are going to be instructing people or kind of directing people more to use this. The quick start guide goes over all these tasks that you might be doing. So for either staff, which are all of you, I understand, if someone was going to be a proctor, what they would do, and then for admins. So you can see that for staff, it talks about different things you would want to do, and it has like a 1 to 3 minute video showing the screenshots and showing how to do that, as well as some descriptions about things. Whoops. The proctoring assessments we won't talk about today. I'm going to skip other resources for the moment. The video tutorials are, again, if you prefer to look at things on video, they're about 1 to 3 minutes, and they go over specific tasks in Northstar. The curriculum we've looked at. And then here, if you have a question, so if something's not working right, or you can't figure out how to do something, you've looked at the resources, you still don't know how to do it, or you have an idea of how Northstar could be better, like the idea of signing learners up by phone number instead of email. You can go to create a support ticket, and it creates basically an email that goes to the whole team, and then whoever is best equipped to answer it and who's first available will then answer that question. So you can always email me questions. I am fairly booked at the moment presenting, so I probably won't get back to you for a few days. So if it's urgent and you want someone else on the team who probably can answer it, best to go through the create a support ticket. And if it's something that I really need to answer, they'll send it to me. So just know that. Also, those ideas like you had, the team is a small team. We're less than five full-time people. But we do take all those, ideas you might have of how Northstar could be better, and we honestly have a spreadsheet. We put all those ideas on the spreadsheet, and then the more times we hear it, the higher up it goes. And then as we're hearing things just all the time, we start talking about how can we, find the staff and resources to make this possible. So a lot of what you see in Northstar is because of what subscribers have asked for, including, I think the last was tagging. Was the last thing that people kept asking us for. So just know that, we do welcome your ideas. In other resources, you will find kind of a hodgepodge of things. Here is, if you kind of want to do the proctor training, you can do it here. Here are where all the standards are. So if you want to see the standards for every assessment in one place, this is a good place to come. So you can see these are the skills that are covered in basic computer skills. So this is what the assessment's asking about. This is what would be covered in the educational piece, the instructional piece, are these topics. And then we have internet basics, and kind of all 14 are here. Also, if you're wondering, like, is this covered in email or is this covered in internet basics? You can find out where these standards live. You also, if you're going to proctor, there's these codes of conduct. Here's the style guide. So if you want to make any marketing materials and use our logo, use our color palette, our font, that all information is all here. We are happy for you to put our logo on, if you're advertising about Northstar classes, or that you offer assessments, or whatever it is you might be offering, put it on your of course, would have your logo on it too, but we're happy for you to use ours as well. I'm going to skip the external resources at the moment, but we also have we have some marketing materials that we've created that you can use. So we've got these posters, flyers, rack cards. The posters, for example, just to show you kind of what it looks like, would have some, a picture and some information. And then here in this rectangle, you could put your own site-specific information. So who to contact, if you're offering classes, if you have certain computer lab hours, obviously the name of your organization. You can kind of write that up as you see fit. And Christine points out that Ohio has also created Ohio-specific resources, and you can see that in the chat, which is awesome. And then below here, these are some screeners. So let's say you're working with a patron that you feel couldn't take the assessment because either their English reading level was low, or maybe you didn't have a device available, or you weren't sure that they had very many digital literacy skills. You can use these screeners. So this one is a kind of a paper pencil thing, where it just is getting at, does this person know anything about digital literacy? And obviously, if you have someone who is able to translate this into other languages, it's fairly easy to translate and still use it. So that may help you if you're working with patrons who would prefer to speak in another language. And then the other screener, oops, I'm trying to see my tabs underneath my controls. Looks like this. So this is more asking people to show you that they know how to do something. So again, if their reading level, the reading ability in English is a little bit lower, they might be more proficient in speaking and showing you. And of course, this can also be translated. So these can give you an idea of someone, kind of where someone falls on that continuum of digital literacy. The last thing I want to show you is these external resources. So as you know, Northstar has 13 of the 14 instructor-led lesson plans done, but only 6 of the 14 self-directed online learning modules completed. So we decided that we would create, probably last year, that we would create a link to resources that other organizations had created. They're all free. Northstar had nothing to do with them, but we feel that they align with our standards in some way. So we set it up so that it looks, similar buckets. And the resource will either be a reading or, like a video or an activity that someone has to do. And if you click on one of them, you can see here's standard 1 for internet basics. And here are 3 resources that we feel are aligned to Standard 1. Just know that they're from a variety of different sources, so they don't all look the same. And they may incorporate a lot more than that actual standard. Because we now have so much of the instructor-led curriculum completed, we are no longer maintaining these links, so you may come across some dead links. But it is another resource for to provide your patrons if you feel it's warranted. So I know our time is coming to an end. Any last minute questions, or not last minute, but any questions that you have?
I will just pop in there and say that if you do have questions that you think of later, we will take care of getting those answered for you. I have been monitoring the chat and jotting down the chat questions. I will add those as an FAQ to our Northstar for Libraries site. And you can access the video on the Open YouTube channel. That will also be posted in a couple places on the Open website, the link to the video and the link to the slides when we have that available. I will tell you that for your viewing convenience, what we do is when we download the video, we also index it so that you can hit right to the point where you want to see a particular topic. So it takes just a little bit for us to process that. We're hoping to get that up to you probably tomorrow morning. And so keep an eye on that information. I'm not seeing any other questions in the chat right now. I do want to thank everyone for attending. Thank you, Teresa, for the presentation, all of this great information. And if you do have questions, please feel free to reach out to me, Christine at oakland.ohio.gov. And again, thanks to everyone who attended. Thanks to all the site administrators. If anybody has questions, again, please feel free to reach out. Teresa, any last words?
No, I want to thank all of you for, helping to close the digital divide for the patrons in Ohio. It really is an equity issue, and it's great to see so many libraries involved in doing that. So I'm excited to hear how things progress.
Indeed.
All
Thank
right.
you so much.
Goodbye, everybody.
All right, we're going to end the recording and end the session. Thank you again for attending.